This is the September meeting of the Jefferson City Planning and Zoning Commission. My name is Ralph Robinette. I am chairman of the commission and will chair the meeting this evening. At this time, we will have introduction of our council liaison, other board members, and city staff. Councilman.
Rick Mihalovich, Council Liaison, 2nd Ward.
Chris Yarnell.
Jack Deacon.
Rob George.
Dave Nunn.
Ian Strotman.
Bunny Tricky Cotton.
Dean Dutoy.
Dale Vaughn.
Shane Wade, city staff.
Eric Barron, Planning Division, City Staff.
Janice McMillan.
Jeremy Cober, Law Department.
City Code authorizes 9 regular members and 3 alternates. Alternates are designated to vote in the absence of disqualification of any regular members. A quorum of 5 members is required to conduct a meeting. I hereby declare that a quorum is present. This evening, our regular members Chris Jordan and Michael Lester are absent. Therefore, Bunny, you may vote. Are there any members who wish to disqualify themselves from voting on any of these agenda issues? Seeing none. Call for cases. We have 2 cases tonight. If you're here to represent it, we just want to know that somebody is here to represent these cases. Case P13013 and case P13014, which in fact are 849 Stone Ridge Parkway plat, final subdivision plat, and special exception permit. Is somebody here to represent those cases this evening? Okay. Do you wish a continuance, or are you ready to go? All right, sir. Thank you. At this time, we will have the staff give us the procedural matters.
Okay. First, I would like to briefly describe the procedures of the Planning Commission. The proceedings of the meeting are being recorded, so I ask that when you speak, please step to the microphone and give your name and address for the record. After a brief introduction by city staff, the applicant and applicant's consultants and advisors will explain the project. The opening presentation by the applicant shall be limited to 10 minutes. The applicant shall be given 3 additional minutes for closing testimony if so requested. We will then ask to hear from any supporters of the request. We will then ask to hear from any opponents of the request. We will then ask to hear from anyone else who wishes to speak on the request. The testimony from supporters, opponents, or other interested parties shall be limited to 3 minutes each, and rebuttal testimony shall be limited to 5 minutes unless permission is granted by the Commission for additional time. And city staff will then describe the proposal and make the recommendations on the request. In order to reduce the time necessary to hear an application, reference to printed material including the staff reports, applicable findings, ordinances, and/or statutes shall not be read into the record unless directed by the Commission. The Commission will then close testimony from the floor. The Commission will then discuss the proposal, then make a motion on the request. The form of the motion shall be positive. That is, the motion shall be made to accept the request as presented or with modifications, stipulations, or conditions. And a final vote would then be taken. Ayes in favor, nays opposed. And the chairman shall announce the results of the vote, specifying the number of votes cast in favor and the number of votes cast against. And the following documents are entered as exhibits for all items under consideration at this meeting: the city code as amended, the comprehensive plan and land use map, copies of applications under consideration, a list of property owners to whom notices were sent, the affidavit of publication of the public notice in the newspaper, copies of drawings, plans, and/or renderings under consideration, letters or memoranda from staff, the staff reports, the minutes of proceedings, letters, photos, memoranda, or other materials submitted by the public or the applicant, and the rules of procedure for the Jefferson City, Missouri Planning and Zoning Commission. These items are a public record and are available for inspection in the Department of Planning and Protective Services or through the Office of the City Clerk. And please be advised that any items that are presented or otherwise received pertaining to the cases under consideration this evening become the property of the Commission. This includes any photographs, drawings, renderings, petitions, and letters. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I do have one request to staff, request to reorder the agenda. We normally list cases on the agenda with the public hearing cases coming first and subdivision plats and items not necessarily requiring a public hearing coming last. In this case, the case number 13 is actually on property that would be platted under case number 14. So we're asking to flip the two around so that case number 14 would be voted on first and case number 13 voted on last, but combine them both together into one presentation because they do deal with the same subject.
Okay. You've heard his explanation. Do any of the commissioners or the proponents have any objection to doing it that way? We will go forward and we will hear them both at the same time, then we will just reverse the order in which we approve them.
I have another request as to the agenda. I'd like to add reapproval of the July 18th, 2013 minutes to the number 4 to go along. We've got a reason for that, but I'd like to add we need to get the July 18th minutes reapproved in their current form.
Okay. We did have a procedural correction that needed to be made in those June minutes that we approved in July. I believe that Dean will make that motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we reapprove the July 18, 2013 minutes as corrected.
Second.
Any questions, comments? It was this procedural thing that we didn't catch. Okay, so we will now go back and we'll reapprove the.
Yes.
We'll vote on that motion. Okay, all in favor of that motion indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. It's unanimous. And then we will now go back, reapprove the July minutes. Do I hear a motion to that effect?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That is carried. Now we will now go to the approval of the August minutes, which you have in your packet if you need a minute or so to look at those.
No. Mr. Chairman, if I may, could we get a vote on the adoption of the agenda as amended with the insertion of the corrections to the previous minutes as discussed?
Okay. I will do that. I have a motion on the floor now. As soon as I get these August amendments, I will do that for you.
Okay.
Do I have a motion to approve the August amendments as presented?
So moved.
Discussion. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, nay. That has been approved. We will now go back and with the agenda as amended, I will now entertain a motion to approve the amended agenda. So moved. Discussion. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. You have approved the amended agenda. We have no communications that we are aware of. We will do both of these cases at the same time. Therefore, we will allow you 20 minutes, or you'll get 10 minutes to present each case if you need 20 minutes to the presenters. Case P 13013, 849 Stone Ridge Parkway Special Exemption Permit. Case number P 13014, Revised Preliminary Plot and Final Subdivision Plat of Stone Division Village Subdivision. Staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll have just a very brief introduction to these two cases and then hand it over to the consultants for a more thorough discussion of what they're proposing. First, it is two separate cases, one of them dealing with the subdivision platting of the property, and then the other one dealing with a special exception permit. The special exception permit is required because what they're proposing is to build a Sam's Club, but more importantly that it's over 100,000 square feet. For a retail building of more than 100,000 square feet, a special exception permit is required to go through the Planning and Zoning Commission and ultimately be approved by the City Council. But they are two separate cases. First, to orient you to the location of where these requests are. Up on the screen is a location map, and I'll be honest that there has been a lot of construction in the area, and this is a somewhat dated air photo. but at the very top of the screen is Kohl's, the Kohl's department store. And you'll see Stone Ridge Parkway down through the center of the screen. Stone Ridge Parkway currently dead ends where out in front of where Dick's Sporting Goods has been constructed. And if you look up at the screen where my mouse pointer is, Dick's Sporting Goods is right about there. There's also a PetSmart building there, and I think a slide later on gives a better view of this area. And also to the east of the property, you'll notice this very large building. This is the Menards home improvement store. And Hard Rock Drive that is used to get to Menards off of Stadium Boulevard dead ends again at this property that's highlighted. So that's where the property is that is both being proposed to be platted and being proposed for a special exception permit to construct a Sam's. Now, back in 2008, when the Menards Superstore was being planned, and the Menards went through a special exception permit process, very exactly similar to this one. There was a preliminary subdivision plat approved for the Stone Ridge Village development, for this phase of the Stone Ridge Village development, and the consultants or the property owners proposing a slight modification to that plat. I do have up on the screen is a preliminary subdivision plat that is being proposed for the property, and the next slide here is the previous preliminary subdivision plat that was approved for the property back in 2008. So they're proposing a revised one. The revision really is just around this area that would deal with again with the current proposal for the Sam's. If you look, the roads slightly change in that area. So I'd hate to dwell on that too much, but it is a revision to the previous preliminary subdivision plat for that property. And then along with the revised preliminary subdivision plat, there's a final subdivision plat that's being proposed. It is a one-lot subdivision. Basically just includes the lot that the Sam's would be built on and the roads that would be built out in front of it. That is the subdivision plat proposal. Then the special exception proposal includes a site plan with a significant number of details on it. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to the consultants to give a more thorough discussion of what they're proposing.
Okay. If you have any questions of staff, we will come back to them at the end. Okay, who is here to present case P13013 and P13014, 849 Stone Ridge Parkway? Any questions at this point? Okay, thank you. Right. I didn't mention it, but when you come forward, make sure we get your name and address for our records, please. questions of Rick at this time? Any other questions of Rick at this time? Thank you. questions of Rob? Thank you. Are there any other proponents here that would like to speak in favor of this proposal?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Heath Clarkston, 101 East High Street. Here on behalf of the local building community, Home Builders Association. We support this project. It's great for the community, and just wanted to publicly state our support.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Is there anyone here that wishes to speak in opposition to this proposal? Seeing none, we will close the public testimony. Staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I'd like to go down very briefly. I think the consultants have done a very good job of presenting the proposal. Just to touch on a few of the items regarding the big box or the superstore special exception. There's two key things that we look for, or that are actually outlined within the city code regarding the actual design of the building for a superstore. And that is that there has to be certain design elements incorporated into the entrance of the building, and then also the building as a whole has to have some community, or the site as a whole has to have some community spaces built into the site. First, to touch on the entrance, the way that the code reads is that there's an entrance needs to be designed with 3 separate architectural features. We believe that is met with, first, there's a canopy over the doorway. Second, there's brickwork going up the sides of the entrance area, and then third, there's the parapet over the top with some extra architectural features kind of built in there. So we feel that the building entrance meets the code requirement for a superstore. Second is the community features on the site. The way that the code reads is that 2 different design features or amenities need to be built into the site. Again, we believe that this is met first with the planters that are along the western side of the building, right where my cursor is right there, and there's a blow up of that located right here. You'll see that there's a number of planters that are built there alongside the building, and also I believe with benches that are right there, although they're kind of hard to see. And then second, the benches along the internal sidewalk. This sidewalk going from basically the front of the building out toward the bus stop has a number of benches that are included on there for people to sit on. The code requires some pretty significant landscaping for superstores, buffer yards around the sides, and then also, of course, the normal parking lot landscaping. The parking lot landscaping for a large lot such as this is reduced from 35% down to 25%, just in case anyone caught on to that. For large parking lots, it is reduced slightly from the normal 35%, but the landscaping requirements we do believe are met as outlined in the staff report, with the exception that was noted that the buffer yard behind the building, once my mouse cursor catches up with me, located along this side. Back in 2008, when the Menards store was developed, they asked for a modification to their buffer yard requirements, so they wouldn't be required to plant trees basically back behind their site where no one would see them. And this would be the side just basically parallel to that, just beside it. And again, the trees are basically moved out to other portions of the site so that they can be appreciated by the public. Again, there are a number of sidewalks and walkways, I think, that have all been presented by the consultant. The loading areas and trash areas for the site, if you look at my mouse cursor, are basically up toward this side, and we feel that they're screened quite well through a combination of topography and landscaping. The topography of this area is actually quite a bit lower than even this driveway. so that this area would sit down below and be kind of hard to see. Plus, there's a significant amount of landscaping around this area. And so the loading bays, recycling areas, and trash compaction areas would be located there on the north side of the building. The parking, again, with a total of 549 parking spaces, I believe, we feel that that is adequate to serve a building of this size. And then the signage plan. They're proposing basically, in addition to building mounted signage, which I'll touch on just in a second, 2 monument signs on the site, and then, of course, to have panels on 2 existing signs for the Stone Ridge Village development. The 2 on-site signs would be located basically just one at each entrance, and then the panels on the existing signs, one on Missouri Boulevard, and then one on Stadium. The building-mounted signage is represented on this slide. You'll see that there's a Sam's Club, call it a Sam's Club Diamond, basically located at the front entrance on this side of the building. A couple locations. And then also on the side facing Stadium or facing to the south. And then also a diamond face on the eastern side of the building facing Stadium, and the purpose of that is so that it is visible essentially from Stadium Boulevard. The way the zoning code reads for special exception uses is that they shall be approved by the commission with the findings that the use and plan is consistent with the purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance and the comprehensive plan, will not substantially and permanently injure the appropriate use of neighboring property, will not overburden municipal services, cause traffic, parking, or environmental problems, or adversely affect health, safety, or the welfare of the community. That language is in the staff report. Is basically taken straight out of the zoning code. Also, if necessary, conditions can be imposed on a special exception permit. With that, and Shane, did you have any comments on the actual special exception? No. Okay. I'd like to touch on the subdivision plat next. And again, the subdivision plat, the actual case comes in 2 parts: a revised preliminary subdivision plat, and then the 1-lot final subdivision plat. First, the revised preliminary plat. Again, it's a fairly, I might refer to it as a minor change from the previously approved plat. Basically, just realigns the road and the intersection slightly in order to accommodate their development plan. And technically, a revised preliminary plat is needed in order to then approve the final subdivision plat. The final subdivision plat is just a 1-lot subdivision, includes the road as well. I believe the engineering division has comments on the infrastructure plans associated with that plat, and I'll turn it over to Shane.
Thank you, Eric. I'll briefly go over it, as most of the items that I have already been stated by the consultants. As Paul had indicated, the extension of the roadway plans for Stone Ridge Parkway and Hard Rock Drive have both been submitted and are currently being reviewed. Future double lane roundabout is being proposed at the intersection of those 2 roadways. We will have some technical comments in regard to the splitter island design for the approach legs into the intersection. I won't get into the details of those at this time. But at this point, then, stormwater detention, as they'd indicated, has been previously provided with section 2 of the subdivision near Stadium Boulevard. Erosion and sediment control plans have been submitted for the improvements and are also currently under review. All proposed lots on the preliminary have been shown to be served by sanitary sewer, including the lot that's being proposed for the final plat this evening. A 10-foot greenway has been proposed along the west side of Stone Ridge Parkway and to continue in the future to the south past the roundabout. 5 feet sidewalk has been proposed along the east side of Stone Ridge Parkway and along both sides of Hard Rock Drive. As Paul indicated, no parking is being proposed to be allowed along either of the roadways. A bus stop turnout has been proposed in front of the Sam's for a bus stop. The facilities for all utilities and the street lights and fire hydrants are being proposed to meet current city standards and requirements. Minor technical corrections to both the preliminary plat and the final plat have been resubmitted for review, and the improvement plan review should be completed shortly.
And just quickly on the staff recommendation, because there are two separate cases, there's two separate recommendations. First, the subdivision plat, staff recommends approval of both the revised preliminary plat and final plat, subject to any necessary technical corrections identified by city staff and finalization of the improvement plans prior to introduction to the city council. I have a recommended form of motion on that staff report in two parts, so that the revised preliminary plat would be approved first, and then the final plat. And then regarding the special exception, review of the proposed site plan and landscaping plan and building elevations indicates compliance with the design standards for a superstore, big box retail development, with the following exception, and that's the noted change to the buffer yard. The required findings under the review criteria appear to be met. The Stone Ridge Village development is intended for large-scale retail operations, and the development plan will not overburden the municipal services. A traffic study has been submitted in conjunction with the subdivision plat for Stone Ridge Village, and the street and traffic circulation system has been designed to meet the traffic demands for the site. Staff supports approval of the special exception use permit. And again, the recommended form of motion for that is at the bottom of the staff report as well. Again, I'd ask that the total of 3 motions. First, the revised preliminary plat. Then the second motion is the final plat. And then the third motion is the special exception permit. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of staff? Dale?
The engineer for Sam's had mentioned that they weren't meeting the required amount of parking spots. Is that noted in the report, or should we just vote on it being?
The number of parking spaces that they're providing, he's correct, does not technically meet the 1 per 200 square feet of gross floor area that's required for the site. And no, I did not note that in the staff report. Menards, when they came in front of this body for a special exception permit, actually noted that they did not meet the parking requirement either, and provided an explanation as to why they felt that the number of parking spots that they were providing was adequate. And then they have, Sam's Club again the consultant has provided some information as why they think that the current number that they have is adequate. To be quite honest, what we probably need to do as staff is bring an amendment to the parking requirement in front of this body in order to change that, because a parking requirement of 5 per, or 1 per 200 square feet just seems a little high. But the number of parking spots that they have does seem adequate.
Eric, what? Just going from memory, wasn't Lowe's? Didn't they end up about the same once we got done with the Chick-fil-A outlot? I can't remember that for sure, but it seemed like that's about where they ended up too.
I think so. But yeah, to remove any doubt, if you could include a statement as to approving the parking in the motion as well for the special exception.
13?
Huh?
Motion.
The third motion. So.
I have a question about the location of the bus turnout. It seems to be poorly located. For someone, if I were going to ride a bus to this location, I would want that bus turnout down closer to where the sidewalk is that services the front door. How much input do we have on the location of that bus turnout? It looks like someone,
Well, the distance is not very great. The turnout is right there, and the sidewalk is right there. So it's a matter of maybe 50 feet, or
How much?
50 to 75 feet, something to that order.
We did have our transit director take a look at this location prior to, in the review of this, to ensure that they were satisfied with the location and that it would serve, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the bus turnout up on Coles is on the same side as the roadway, which was one of our questions to him initially, is did we need it anywhere else? But we did have confirmation from him in regard to the location here.
okay. Well, based on the scale here, it's about 120 feet from that sidewalk. So,
Yeah, and you're probably correct. Yeah.
so it just seems like at this point in the project, that now would be a good time to move it. So, but I don't know how much input that,
You certainly have input. The Planning and Zoning Commission does have input, but the transit director has reviewed the location and is comfortable with it.
I have just one more clarification. Whenever we were talking about the signage, was the idea to make the sign taller, the existing sign taller where Kohl's and Sam's is, or just flipping the actual location?
No, my understanding is that the existing sign would be modified somewhat in order to make a little bit more room up there at the top. And this is the existing sign on at Stone Ridge Village, or Stone Ridge Parkway and Missouri Boulevard. Right now, the Kohl's is located up there by itself. I think they would redesign the very top of the sign to get the name of the development in there, a little bit less space, in order to make a little bit more room at the very top for the Sam's Club. I do believe that it will meet the signage requirements for a large area commercial development sign, as outlined in Chapter 3 of the City Code.
Shane, I have a question for you. What is the standard for the city for your stormwater sizing, your stormwater event on your city street on Hard Rock?
As far as the enclosed system, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that's been designed to carry and Paul may verify that with me, but I believe the 100-year, isn't that correct? 25 is the minimum, the requirement, yes. I believe in portion of that, I believe you over-designed that, though, if I'm not mistaken. 25 is the minimum that the city requires.
I guess I asked the question wrong. What is the normal design?
Right, 25.
Is 25.
Yes.
Do you have an issue putting a 100-year storm event into a 25-year storm pipe?
Well, and that, again, I think the 100-year design is what was done on the site, and and I'll double check that, but I'm almost certain that the large system that would be tying into would be for the larger storm too, as well.
Just on the face, it made me ask the question.
Right. The reason that I say that, I mean, in terms of the overflow path for that would be the road. But
I know. That's my concern.
Right. It's a very deep system, I know that. And so in order to carry that quantity of water to the basin, which then would contain that 100-year event, that's really the critical location as to where all the water would
And
get.
I'm familiar with the basin location.
Right.
What's the
I will
difference?
double check that, though.
Okay. What's the difference in elevation, on floor elevation, between Dick's and Sam's and Menards? Just out of curiosity. I mean, it looks like it's fairly great. Okay. I knew it was a pretty good elevation change. I just was curious. I'm not done yet. Janice, I'm sorry, last one. Did we touch on someplace and I missed it, the Stone Ridge Parkway landscaping for those islands? Is there going to be any? Didn't we have an issue with that before? With site visibility?
Yes, I believe as far as the site visibility issue, that was addressed up at the intersection of South 10 Mile Drive, and some of the landscaping that had been placed initially had been removed in order to provide better sight distance in and out of that intersection. As far as the additional that had been proposed, I would assume it would be similar in that we'd want to make sure that it does not cause any issue with sight distance. Right, right, exactly.
Any other questions of staff? Paul, can you work with staff on everything they've asked you to do, sir? Okay. Okay, we will do these in reverse order. We will take up case P13014, and we will do that in the form of two motions. Who wants to do the first motion?
I'd like to make the first motion for approval of the revised preliminary plat for Stone Ridge Village Phase 2, subject to staff recommendations. And then the second motion,
Just one at a time.
Motion at a time.
Okay, got it.
I'll
Right.
second that.
Okay, discussion on the first motion. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carries unanimously. Dale, you want to do the second?
Okay, the second motion is for approval of the final plat of Stone Ridge Village Section 3, subject to staff recommendations.
I'll second that again.
Have a motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes unanimously. We will now go to case P13013, the special exception permit. I know you took notes on it, Dale.
Okay. I'm not really sure how to word that, though. How would I word the amended parking requirement? Is that what?
I would say probably motion for approval of the special exception use permit, including the number of parking spaces as presented on the plan.
I'd like to make a motion for approval of the special exception use permit, including the proposed number of parking spaces as shown on the plan. Sorry.
And the modification to the buffer yard.
And the modification to the buffer yard.
Have another motion. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes unanimously. Do you have the approximate date this will come before the council, Eric?
Yes, this will be up in front of the City Council for a public hearing on October 21st. That meeting will take place at 6 p.m. in this room.
Thank you. Other business. Michael isn't here, so I assume we do not have an environmental report tonight. Do we have any other business? Seeing none, thank you for your attendance. We are adjourned.